Neogenians, welcome to Dawn of the New Earth. Today we're asking, what the hell happens to God at the end of time? Not only that, what happens to us at the end of time? Do we just play harps on clouds for eternity? I sure hope not. We're going to find out the answer to this. It's going to be very good. This is a question that many people don't ask. A lot of people think about the beginning and creation, but very few people think of the end. And even when they do think of the end, they think of what happens in the world in terms of like Armageddon or some kind of apocalyptic scenario. But what happens at the end of time, the end of space itself? That's what we're going to be getting into today, and it's going to be good. But as always, my friends, first I want to remind you, this is not a channel. We are a revolution of the mind, here to make higher consciousness go viral and to spread the information that the church tried to hide for nearly 2,000 years. Well, joke's on them, because now we're reaching millions of people with it every single month. So hit like, share, subscribe. I know it sounds like something small, but each time you do that, that's another spark igniting the flame. If you want to help out even more, you can become a member on YouTube or on Patreon, and you get access to a lot of great stuff like free downloads on inner transformation and members only videos. There are a ton of them, and it helps out the channel. You get access to great stuff. You can also support by checking out my books. I'm a Neogenian, and if you want to know what that is, I've written a 5-part series on the Neogenian system. And if you're looking for a free way to support, all you got to do is follow me over on Spotify. We are reaching a ton of new people on that platform. And so help us continue to do so. If you have a Spotify account, it's completely free to do. Just go to my channel, hit follow, helps out a lot. Links to all those things, Spotify, memberships, books, they're all in the description of this video. But let's get started. What happens to God at the end of time? So first, we're going to take a look at the Gnostic interpretation of this, and then we're going to go into an even deeper interpretation of this as well. So let's start by beginning where we left off last week. And if some of this sounds confusing to you, or you don't really know where I'm going with this, just stick with it, because it'll start to make sense as the story unfolds and then as the explanations unfold later. Okay, but just as a sort of recap, well, first of all, what do we mean when we talk about God? Well, when we talk about God, a lot of people think of the God of the Bible. And the God of the Bible is, according to Gnosticism, the demiurge, a lower creator God. But the true God is the one, or the source, which you can think of as like an energy core. It's pure light, pure mind that emanates all reality. So when we talk about what happens to God at the end of time, we're going to be talking about both of these gods, the higher God and the lower God. But remember, there's something in between the higher God and the lower God, of course. That's the pleroma, the realm of light, and the realm of the eons. So the one emanates all these different beings. One of these beings that the one emanates is called Sophia. Her name means wisdom. Sophia decides to create apart from the will of the one and without her partner. And when she does this, she births a dark daughter born from this imbalance. And this dark daughter in Valentinian Gnosticism is called Achamoth or Achamoth. Now, Achamoth is the daughter of Sophia, but she's dark and distorted. And her name means the wisdom of death. So Sophia is wisdom. Achamoth is the wisdom of death, or deathly wisdom. And she basically goes crazy because she's born in the void. She doesn't know that anything else exists but her. She basically goes insane and has a mental breakdown, and her mental breakdown becomes a world. Just like when you go to sleep and dream, your emotions and your thoughts become a world. Same thing with Achamoth. Her tears become the rain and the oceans and the rivers. Her ignorance forms into matter. She has very brief recollections of a higher realm, and she smiles, and that becomes the sun and light in general. And so she's in this state of mental anguish, emotional breakdown. She thinks she's the only being in existence, but sometimes remembers that there's something more and wants to return to that something more. And her breakdown becomes the world. She becomes the world. And she eventually gives birth to the demiurge. So the demiurge is the God of the Bible, and he is the dark child of Achamoth. Like Achamoth, he thinks that he's the only being in existence. So he thinks he's all there is, and he says, I'm the true God, I'm the only God, there is no God but me. And he takes all the matter and substances created by Achamoth and molds them into the world. and to human bodies because he wants essentially servants. He wants servants. So he molds human bodies, but Achamoth wants humanity to, or Achamoth wants to return to the light, okay? So how does Achamoth do this? Well, she has the light within herself. She's a spiritual being. And she has the light of the one within herself because she was born from the light, even though it was from imbalance, she still has light. And so her light, but her light's imbalanced, it's distorted. So she needs to fix it. How does she fix it? Hold on one second here. Okay, so she wants to return to the light. And but her light is distorted because she was born from imbalance. But I'm being real loose with the terms here when I say that her light is distorted. But it was born from imbalance essentially, and so she had, in a loose way, she has to fix it. It's more complicated than that, but let's be simplistic here. So how is she going to do that? Well, unbeknownst to the demiurge, the god of the Bible, she passed some of her light into him, or her light into him. And he doesn't know it. It's in his unconscious. He's not aware of it. And then, so when the demiurge creates humanity, without knowing it, he passes that light into humanity. Okay? So, and this light, it's not passing, it's not like regifting something where it's like, oh, I have this thing and I'm giving it to you now, and now I don't have it anymore. It's not like that. It's like lighting the flame of a candle. So if you have one flaming candle and then light another and another and another and another, you're passing on the light, but none of the flames extinguish. Every flame is still burning. So Achamoth doesn't lose her light. The demiurge doesn't lose his light. When it's passed into humanity, it's just reflected into us. Okay? So we contain that light because it was passed from Achamoth into the demiurge and then into us. So this is actually part of Achamoth's plan, because what Achamoth wants to do is put the light inside of us so that it becomes perfected through us, through our growth, through our transformation. And it's described in the Gnostic texts, or not the Gnostic texts, but reports on Gnostic texts by Valentinian and Tertullian, that she plants her spiritual seed in humanity. That's how they describe it. She plants her spiritual seed in humanity. And that's the seed of spirit, the seed of light that gets planted in humanity. But here's the thing, though, is that a seed needs both light and darkness to grow. You need to have the earth and the soil and the roots, and then you need to reach towards the sun. So we get sort of planted in this world of darkness. Now, it doesn't mean that the world is evil, just like soil isn't evil. It's just dark. It can become evil if it's used incorrectly, and often it is. But it's not evil in and of itself. It's just another pole of reality, a polarized force. And so through our experiences on the earth, our souls become perfected and more connected to that spiritual seed, which then begins to grow and develop. And that imbalance starts to become fixed through us. Okay? So that becomes fixed through us because we are in the earth, planted. And so you can think of the earth and bodies as like incubators, kind of. Or, soil for a seed to grow. But we want to reach towards the light. And so we begin doing this through all of our experiences and growth and understanding and knowledge that we have today. I'm not going to get too into that or throughout our lives. I'm not going to get too into that because we want to get to the end of time. And we'll be here all day and never get to the end of time if I spend all my time talking about other things. So this is what occurs. The light is developing through us. When and we looked at this before. If you want to know more about Achamoth, I did a whole video on her last week. And if you want to know more about the demiurge being redeemed, check out my video before that. My 2 previous videos, I believe. Or I don't know, just they're somewhere in there. Find them, I guess. But so the demiurge, he ultimately wakes up and becomes redeemed. So at some point, the demiurge develops himself recognizes the light and goes like, oh shit, I've been fucking up this whole time. There's actually something higher than me. I didn't know that, but now I do. And he's not pissed about it. He's actually really happy about it. He's like, oh, thank God. There's, so, you know, the old saying, it's lonely at the top. Well, he's like, oh, finally, there's something more. I have more to exist for. And so the demiurge is redeemed. And what the demiurge ends up doing is he begins to help humanity grow. And by creating better conditions on Earth. So symbolically speaking, what the demiurge redeemed represents is Earth becoming a healthy state of existence. Right now, it's not. It's very unhealthy. It's sick because of the rich oligarchical billionaire elitist class that doesn't give a shit about you and only cares about themselves and is going to burn the world down just so that they can, I don't know, have a few more yachts or something. So, but that doesn't mean that the world is evil. It means it's being misused. It's our kingdom. The earth is our kingdom. It's the kingdom of God. You want to reach the kingdom of God? Surprise, we're here. It's all around you. That's what Jesus says. The kingdom of God is all around you and within you. It's a state of consciousness, and we can see it here when we reach that state of consciousness, because earth is literally our kingdom. It's not a bad thing. It's how we experience physical reality and separation and multiplicity, which allows us to have very interesting experiences. So it's not a bad thing. Okay, so Achamoth is planting these seeds. The demiurge, when he is redeemed, creates better conditions. You know, we want to water the seeds and make sure that they're planted at the right depth, et cetera, et cetera. A healthy world. This can, you know, translate into, let's say, universal health care or universal basic income or something. I'm just throwing things out there to see what I'm saying. Like when I say water the plants, I'm not talking about literally water the plants. I'm talking about creating a healthy world society, a planetary civilization that has all the necessary conditions so that we can grow and expand and experience each other and gain knowledge and understanding and aren't busy trying to kill each other because our skin is different colors and all the bullshit that humans kill each other for. So the demiurge represents that the demiurge redeemed represents the earth in its healthy state for the incubators of us, and Achamoth represents the development itself. Okay, Achamoth is that development that occurs, that's occurring within us, because we have the light of Achamoth, meaning when we develop, she develops, because everything is connected, everything is linked together. So that's what's happening here. We're developing, she's developing because we are her and she is us, and so we're developing here, and we are called the ecclesia. The collective of awakened minds is the ecclesia, the assembly. That's what that means. And so as we develop and reach higher and higher states of consciousness, we will understand what we are, where we are, and why we are here. Okay, and so as we do this, we will begin to eventually transcend the need for physical bodies. Because the earth itself is like a seed. And once the plant grows, well, the seed kind of gets cast off like a husk. Or you can think of it as an incubator or a womb. Now, none of these things we stay in forever. They have a purpose. We don't want to be like, oh, the seed is evil, or oh, the incubator is evil, or oh, the womb is evil. No. They're nurturing, they're healthy, and they're all a fundamental part of the process. But we don't stay in them forever. We don't stay in the womb forever. We don't stay in the incubator forever. We eventually grow to a point where we're no longer dependent on that. We've developed. Okay. So humans, as they are right now, are in a very low state of consciousness, simple self-awareness, not even advanced self-awareness, but simple self-awareness. And this is why our world is fractured, because we have a consciousness that is fundamentally based on division, self versus other, I versus you, me versus you. And so we need to get humanity to the next level, which is all awareness, which is the realization that we are all interconnected, that it's not me versus you, it's me versus another reflection of me from another perspective. And I am a you from another perspective, because we are all the source experiencing itself here. So that's what's key. It's not about escaping the earth. It's about transforming it and transforming ourselves and transforming society. We can't just leave the womb prematurely. We're going to die if we do that. not literally, but you get, it's not about trying to escape the world now. It's about building a better world, because that's the whole point of why we are here. And the lesson that we need to learn to be able to transcend this plane, we need to go through this process of growth. And that process of growth is not just individual, it's also collective, meaning we need to create a planetary world civilization. In the Neogenian system, we call this a teleocracy. Teleocracy coming from the word telos, which means purpose. So a teleocracy is a purpose-driven society. What is the purpose of a teleocracy? In the Neogenian system, it is to maximize the quality of life for everyone, to create the best incubator possible, essentially. And once we do that, and we begin to form this collective consciousness and advance spiritually and technologically, and begin to interconnect and operate from this perspective of being one, we will eventually transcend the need for physical bodies, and we will ascend as a group consciousness, which in the Neogenian system we call a subnetwork mind, that is then able to create its own, basically like its own dimension. We call this a CFD, a collective frequency domain, its own realm, its own universe that exists, created from the projected mind of us as a group. Because we are beings of frequency patterns, sinusoidal waveforms, and when you combine these waveforms together, you can create anything you'd like. You can create anything from a combination of these very basic waveforms, which is all of what we are part of. So we contain we contain the building blocks of reality. We contain the DNA of existence, essentially. As above, so below. We contain everything within us. So it's like a hologram. A hologram is like if you have a hologram of an apple and you cut the hologram in half, you don't have two apples, or you don't have two halves of an apple, you still have two whole apples in each hologram. You can cut the hologram into 10 pieces, and each piece will still contain the entire picture of the apple. You don't get 10 little pieces of the apple, you still have 10 whole apples. So we are like a hologram, in that we contain the information of the entire universe, all reality within us. That's why Jesus says, when you know yourself, you'll know everything. You'll know the all. Because when you look inside and discover you know the whole apple when you look at your own individual piece. So we have the understanding to create reality. We have the building blocks to create reality. We have the capacity to create reality. We just have to tap into that individually and as a collective. So we'll be able to do that. We'll be able to transcend bodies, transcend the earth, transform this entire domain itself, not even in this domain anymore, and create our own, what you might call dimension, but really it's another domain, would be more accurate, a CFD, collective frequency domain. And from there, it gets more complicated, because we're getting to a whole nother layer of reality where now we're talking about things like the harvesting of souls. So, with all that being said, let's get back to the Gnostic text now that you have this context. And we can understand this from a Neogenian lens. Because remember, Achamoth has planted the seeds within humanity, and what happens when those seeds grow? Well, according to Tertullian, this is what happens. As soon as Achamoth has completed the full harvest of her seed and has then proceeded to gather it into her granary, then shall the end speedily come. Super important here. So in the Neogenian interpretation of this fits in very, very well. The seed develops, Achamoth then harvests the seed and puts it in her granary. Likewise, this is very similar to what we just talked about, where our souls will develop. We'll no longer have the need for physical bodies. We will transcend this physical domain entirely. This spatial temporal, space and time, this world of space and time, and be connected in this collective mind, like a granary whose seed, that has been harvested. So we will have transcended the physical domain when we reach that level, but it's up to us to do that through collective awakening. So what began as an individual awakening becomes this collective intelligence, a planetary mind that forms through us. And what happens now is, let's see, let me get to this here. So what happens now, I'm going to give you the Gnostic story first, and then I'm going to get to the Neogenian interpretation, because the whole idea is here, like, well, what the hell happens to everything at the end of time? What happens to us? What happens to God? What happens to the source, God of the Bible? Blah blah blah. Okay, so according to Gnosticism, here's what happens to the Demiurge and Achamoth. So Tertullian writes, then to begin with, Achamoth removes herself from the middle region, from the second stage to the highest, since she is restored to the Pleroma. So what this means, so Achamoth right now exists in a liminal space that connects the higher domains of light and the material world. So she's in the middle region, this intersectional space, this space that connects the two together, really. And this is likewise for us. We are both connected to heaven and earth. We're connected to physical reality, but we also are connected to our divine selves as well. So that's everything that's reflected in Achamoth is reflected in us. So when we develop and eventually transcend, well, that's Achamoth transcending as well. We transcend to a collective frequency domain, which is light. It is a realm of light. The frequency domain is a realm of light. That's what it is. Okay. So we collectively transcend the physical world and are then in this realm of light, which is really our light. It's not a light apart from us. It is our light. And then from that light, we can construct another universe. But we transcend to this realm of light. And so in the Gnostic story, that's what happens to Achamoth, because Achamoth is like the collective of us. That's what she sort of represents. She represents us all together, collectively. So Achamoth, when we are restored, she is restored. And so we go to the frequency domain, she goes to the frequency domain. Because this is just a symbol for us as a collective. So she is removed from the middle region, from the second stage to the highest, since she is restored to the Pleroma. The Pleroma is the realm of light. It means fullness. So, okay, so what happens to the Demiurge? It says, in like manner, the Demiurge too will then change the scene of his abode from the celestial hebdomad to the higher regions, to his mother's now vacant saloon. So here's what happens to the Demiurge. The Demiurge, so in Gnosticism, there's different levels or layers to reality. That liminal zone that Achamoth occupied was called the eighth. And it says that she's part of the Ogdoad, meaning the eighth layer. Okay, the eighth layer. But the Demiurge is the ruler of the hebdomad, which is the 7 layers. So you have Achamoth in the 8th, ruling everything below her, and then you have the Demiurge in the 7th, ruling everything below him. The Achamoth gets promoted. She's not in the 8th anymore. She leaves the 8th, reaches the highest realms of the Pleroma. Now the Demiurge moves from the 7th to the 8th. He takes his mother's place. And so he basically gets, he levels up as well. He levels up as well. So remember, the Demiurge is like this creator. And so when we transcend the collective frequency domain, or transcend to the realm of light, the collective frequency domain, we can construct another universe. We can use those demiurgic powers. We are the creators then, but now we are doing so fully conscious and aligned with our higher selves and creating from ourselves. So this is what happens, right? So Achamoth transcends to light. The Demiurge creator now occupies the middle region, connected to both. And that's us transcending to a collective frequency domain and then having the capacity to create a new universe. And so, yeah, and Tertullian even says what happens to us. As for the human race, its end will be the following effect. The spiritual will then become wholly intellectual spirits, impalpable, invisible, and in this state, they will be readmitted invisibly to the Pleroma. So basically the same thing that happens to Achamoth happens to us, because Achamoth is just us collectively. And that's essentially what they're saying here, because it's the same thing that happens to Achamoth. The spiritual will be wholly intellectual spirits, invisible, impalpable, and admitted invisibly to the pleroma. So this is transcending the physical domain, entering into the domains of light, and everything we just discussed. It's just in terms of the human race rather than Achamoth, but they're both, Achamoth is the symbol for the human race collectively. So let's see here. Okay, so what happens? Let's really start to break this down now. So according to Gnosticism, at the end, what happens? Well, we ascend to the realms of light, and the demiurge is now in the liminal zone. He gets promoted, and happily ever after, I suppose. But that's not the end of the story. That's just another part of the journey. Once we get to that level where we have transcended the physical domain, that's not the end. That's just like another level. There's more levels to play in the game. And so that is not the end of space and time, because we exit the domain of space and time, but that domain of space and time still exists. Okay? That domain of space and time still exists. Now we can create our own universe, our own domain of space and time. But this realm we live in right now is like the public pool. It's the public domain. All souls congregate here. And so we as a species develop and reach transcendence and transcend to the realms of light. But this universe is still, it doesn't disappear with us. We're just humans. We're not the end all, and we're not everything. Well, we are everything. Our group as a collective is just one of many souls. The entirety of space and time will not end until every soul in the universe reaches that state of transcendence. So we're one species on Earth that will collectively reach that. But other species on other planets have done that before and are very likely interested in our development. Why? Well, when we reach that state, we'll be interested in the development of other species on other planets as well. How come? Because that's the new game that we're playing. The game that we're playing right now is, us as a species transcend. But when we reach that level, the next part of the game becomes help other species transcend. Because we haven't completed the game yet. We're just at another layer now. And so it is only when every soul in existence reaches that transcendent state and aligns perfectly will the domain of space and time no longer exist. That will be the end of space and time. That will be the end of space and time. And so, and hopefully that makes sense in terms of, if you need more elaboration or want me to do another video on this, let me know in the comments, because I'm glossing over a lot of stuff very quickly. But when every species goes through the process that we will go through in that transcendent state, then and everyone perfectly aligns, because again, that's not even the end of the game, because every group mind then, every subnetwork mind has to align with each other. There are other group minds that exist. It's not just us, it's every species that evolves and reaches that state. And so we'll have to learn to unify with them as well. So there's a lot to this. This is just transcending the physical domain is not, people are so obsessed with like escaping. We're just getting started, okay? We're going to reach this level, and then we're going to help others, species as well, develop, and then we're going to need to align and become an integrated system together universally as the one network mind. We are a network mind beginning to arrange its pathways into more cohesion and coherence, literally coherence in terms of light waves. because we are light. We are frequencies. That's light. We are beings of light. We are beings of frequencies. These are sinusoidal waveforms. And we can construct matter from the interaction of these waves. So, okay. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But when every species in existence transcends the physical domain, and every single one of us across all reality begins to realign perfectly with each other, the domain of space and time will no longer exist. Why? Because the domain of space and time is ultimately built from misalignment. Because a coherent laser beam essentially produces a holographic image, three-dimensional image, when it forms an interference pattern or passes through an interference pattern. So basically what this means is that matter is broken light. It's light that is not misaligned light, essentially. That's essentially what a hologram is misaligned light. I'm being kind of simplistic here, but it has to do with an interference pattern, which is essentially misaligned light. So when all of us align together, there will no longer be a projected hologram because everything will be aligned. So the collective hologram that we are generating right now will no longer be generated because everything that was out of alignment returns to alignment. And at that point, there is no space and time. There is only the frequency domain and its core, the source. And eventually everything will unify so perfectly that there will just be the source, a domain of pure, perfect light. Because the source is outside of space and time, and the source is eternal, and the source is what we are. So we will return to that perfected state of total alignment. And now the approach to that state, well, we don't know what that would be like, but it's likely a state of perfect bliss. Of, you know, imagine the feeling of finding your perfect lover across time. That feeling, that rapturous feeling, and then multiply that across every soul in existence. It's essentially that kind of feeling when we're all coming together, the satisfaction of every piece fitting perfectly. Space and time no longer exists because that is generated from misalignment, pieces being scattered, but now the pieces are collected and put back together, and we have that. Okay, so what happens? Is it happily ever after? No. Because if that happened, we would be bored out of our fucking minds. It would just be pure light forever. Now, that can't happen for a number of reasons. One, experientially, that would become hell. Imagine doing nothing forever. That eventually that state of bliss would wear off, and we would just be, begging for something to happen. Now, I'm being very metaphorical here because that state is not one that we can actually describe. We don't know what it will actually be like. But in terms of mathematics as well, it has to happen because everything is in motion. Motion cannot cease. So there's not just motion in space and time. There's also motion in the source. The source is in motion. And the frequency domain is in motion. So motion is always occurring. And because motion is always occurring, well, what happens when everything perfectly aligns? Everything aligns 100% perfectly. Well, then eventually, well, not even eventually, instantly almost, misalignment will occur because motion can't stop and everything is perfect, but something still has to happen. What will happen? Imperfection. Imperfection will occur. And so what happens is that at the end of space and time, we go to a big crunch, everything collapses back into a singularity. And then when that occurs, we're in a state of perfect union, but then that unity breaks and the singularity extends forth again, generating a new projection, a new hologram. It's the Big Bang. The Big Bang was the moment we went from collective, complete and total alignment to out of alignment. And that makes perfect sense. Think about the Big Bang. It's like, oh, well, there was nothing, and then suddenly, boom, there was everything. Crazy bullshit, right? That's not possible. And the reason why that's not possible, it's logically impossible, but the reason why it seems like that from our point of view in space-time is because what existed prior to the Big Bang was a state of mind. It wasn't physical. So when we, take a look at, do experiments and look at things in terms of physics, it'll seem like, oh, everything came from nothing, but that's crazy. Everything didn't come from nothing. It seems like everything came from nothing because what existed was something that wasn't in space and time. Remember that, if you have a laser beam, you have a laser beam and a holographic plate. The laser beam shines into the holographic plate and produces the holographic image. Well, if everything aligns perfectly, there's no more interference pattern, that hologram is going to disappear, but the source beam, that laser beam's not going to disappear. That light is always going to be on. But from the perspective of being in the hologram, it's going to look like, oh, well, everything just disappeared. And at some point, everything just appeared because the source can't see the source because the source isn't in the hologram. The source projects the hologram. So we are the mental singularity of light that projects the hologram. That's the Big Bang. And that's caused from our internal light, our inner light, our frequency patterns, our sinusoidal waves going from alignment to out of alignment in terms of a phase change, in phase to out of phase. And believe it or not, one of the most prominent scientists in the 20th century, David Bohm, a protege of Einstein, basically said that matter is frozen light. That's what he said. He said, you can imagine the ocean of energy of reality as being an ocean of light, and light slows. And when light slows, it becomes matter. And you can think of it as, so all the matter around you, even your physical body, it's light, but light that's been frozen, slowed down. Just like you put water in the freezer and all the molecules slow and solidify. Well, the ice cube is still made of water, but it seems like something totally different. We seem like something totally different from light, but we're not. We are light. We're just light that's been slowed. We're light that has been solidified, so to speak. Okay? So anyways, this from the misalignment, a new Big Bang occurs and a new universe occurs. Okay, so then what happens? The same thing. We repeat the same process. We repeat the same game again. This is because existence is not linear. Existence is not a line that has a beginning point and then an end point. Existence is a circle. And a circle has no beginning and it has no end. Or, depending on, or you could say that the end is the beginning. And the beginning is the end. The beginning of one universe is the end of another. The end of a universe is the beginning of another. The end is the beginning is the end is the beginning is the end. The alpha is the omega. I am the beginning and the end. Do you see that? I am is the name of God. I am God. I am the Alpha and the Omega. God is the beginning and the end. We are the beginning and the end. And that entails everything in between, because the end is the beginning. And that's why the term Neogenian comes from neo in Genesis, meaning new beginning, because the old world is ending and the new one is beginning. The end of the old world is the birth of the new world. And that's what we're facilitating right now, the birth of the new world. And all of us, as we reach new states of consciousness, are also new beginnings in and of ourselves, transforming and growing and giving birth to higher states. Anyway, I digress here. So the same thing occurs. We go through this. So reality is cyclical. You go from the Big Bang, the long journey of transformation, evolution, transcendence, to the Big Crunch, to the Big Bang, to the Big Crunch. But the singularity is behind there the whole time. So basically, does the space and time domain end? Yes, it does. But as soon as it does, another one is generated. The source never ends. The source is fundamental. Why is the source fundamental? Well, because it's eternal light. What the space and time domain are states of that light. So light itself is eternal, but its expression as matter is not. If all the light is coherent and aligned and in phase, there is no space and time, there is no matter. But as soon as it becomes, but the light is still there. But as soon as it becomes misaligned and out of phase, matter is generated. Space and time is generated. Okay, so the light, the mind, our soul, what we are, that is eternal. We have always existed. We always will exist. The domains of space and time, they begin and end. But every end is also a beginning. So you could think of it like the universe is kind of like the body of the source. Like we're eternal minds, we are souls. In the Neogenian system, we call them zetas, and we exist interfaced with this body that allows us to grow, learn, and understand. But what happens? Eventually, this body dies, and we relocalize or reincarnate into another body. So the universe is like the source's incarnation, basically. And like bodies, universes are born and they die. But from its death, a new one is born. We will generate a new one. So light, eternal, always existed, will never exist. Remember, eternal means having no beginning and no end. No beginning and no end, like a circle. People find that hard to grasp. Like, how can something have no beginning and no end? A circle. Reality is patterned after a circle. The symbol of the monad is a circle. Sinusoidal waveforms are simply a circle expressed in a different way. Everything is based on cyclical patterns. Everything is based on circular patterns. That's how we exist. That's why we exist, because everything is everything exists in a closed loop. Everything is logical. If it were in a circle, if it were in a closed loop, it would be illogical. It would be impossible. We wouldn't exist. We exist because we exist within a closed loop. And so we go through this this cycle. And now these cycles are not identical to each other. They're different. So think of it like, oh, you read a book. You go from the beginning of the book and then to the end of the book. All right, you're done with the book. You close it. You put it aside. What do? Do you just sit there forever and do nothing? Imagine the only thing you can do is read books, let's say. I don't know. It's a weird analogy, but let's go with it. Would you just sit there and do nothing? No, you'd pick up another book and read that book from beginning to end. When you finish that one, you close it and you pick up another book and read it from beginning to end. And that's essentially what's occurring here. And there's a lot to this. If you're really interested in this stuff, check out my Neogenian book series, the 5-part series. It's available on my Amazon page. But because that's why I wrote 5 books on it, and they're not short books either. They're very long. So there's a lot of information, a lot of things that I'm skipping and condensing so that we can try and get this big picture of things. Because that's what's important, is having this big overall picture so you can start to form. That's what starts to begin a new consciousness, because now you have a model of reality that is reflected of the state of the all rather than just the individual. See, now you're not just thinking in terms of, oh, me, in my house with my particular problems. You're thinking in terms of the interconnection of everything, all reality, universal cycles. You are literally when you really grasp this stuff and begin to understand it, you are literally forming a new structure in the psyche. You as the ego have the concept of the self and the I, but when you reach a higher state of awareness, you develop the concept of the all, which is literally, it's literally the development of a new structure of the psyche. That's how we reach higher consciousness. It's not this like airy fairy woo-woo mystical vague shit where it's like, oh, just meditate, 10 hours a day. And I mean, sure, meditation can help. I'm not bashing meditation, but I'm saying it's not this. It is just as the ego is the development of a structure in the psyche that allowed us to survive by partitioning reality into self and other. Higher consciousness is the development of the analog all, a new structure in the psyche that allows us to see the connection between self and other and everything. That's what it is. It's not this like vague, crazy stuff. It's literally a structure in the psyche. You can develop it now. It'll take some work, but you can do it. And that's what my channel is about. It's like spreading this information so it begins to go viral and this structure starts to develop in as many people as possible. That's the point of this channel, my books, and what we're doing here as a community. That's what it is. All these stories are ways of understanding it. Because people learn things better through stories than like a dry essay. And so that can be the first step towards getting there, is absorbing it in story form. And the Gnostic system is really great for representing things in terms of story form. So, okay, so we have this this cyclical system here going on. And so to be clear, the Gnostics didn't teach us a cyclical system. Certain philosophical schools did, particularly the Stoics, Stoicism, Greek Stoicism, Roman Stoicism is a little different. But the Greek Stoics saw reality as existing in cycles. The world would, everything would eventually be consumed in fire and reborn from that fire, and then consumed and reborn, and then consumed and reborn, and consumed and reborn. Another philosopher, one of my favorites, Empedocles, also saw reality in terms of cycles, going through stages of love and hate, or unity and separation, unity and separation, unity and separation. He described it as love and hate, love and hate, love and hate, but it's unity and separation, and that's what allows, that's the alignment and misalignment of light. The unity of light and the alignment of light to the misalignment of light, which that's what generates this these universal cycles, light going in from alignment to misalignment, alignment, misalignment, alignment, misalignment, alignment, misalignment, alignment, misalignment, alignment. You see, everything reflects that sinusoidal pattern. Everything reflects that cyclical structure. And what's really interesting is that, so the Gnostics didn't teach this cyclical system. I'm just telling you, this is part of the Neogenian system, and the Neogenian system is synthesized throughout, many different philosophies and systems and mathematics and philosophy, etc. Okay, so one thing that I want to mention that's interesting about this is that this can feel like a bad thing, but it's actually not, because it's what saves us from ourselves, and we're basically like experiencing this game. We're basically playing a game. You're playing a video game, you beat the video game. What do? You get a new video game and you play another game. And so we're playing this game with each other. And that's why the meaning of life is to enjoy it and to understand it. That's the meaning of life, to enjoy it and understand it. Enjoy it because existing as a multiplicity allows us to have that joy of and that feeling of aligning again. That feeling of alignment, of love, is beautiful. And so, but alignment wouldn't mean anything without misalignment. We would have nothing to contrast that to. Up means absolutely nothing without the concept of down. Up is defined according to down. Hot is defined in contrast to cold. You have to have these contrasts for one thing to have meaning. And so this breaking apart and shattering of ourselves, that's what we're doing essentially. We're going from unity to out of unity. We're shattering ourselves, not literally, but in terms of everything being completely coherent to misaligned. And in doing so, there's of course we no longer have access to memory for a variety of reasons, which I don't have time to get into. But we do this so that we can have the joy of returning to unity again. And Aleister Crowley put this really beautifully. Aleister Crowley wrote, "I am divided for love's sake, for the chance of union. This is the creation of the world. That the pain of division is as nothing, and the joy of dissolution all." So what he's essentially saying is, reality divides for the chance to reunite again. I am divided for love's sake, for the chance of union. And this is the creation of the world. And that pain of division, he's basically saying like that pain of division, because it's painful, feeling separated and lonely and isolated from others in the collective and even yourself. But he's basically saying that pain of dividing is nothing compared to the joy of returning to unity. That's essentially what he's saying there. So that, in just 2 sentences there, he very poetically and accurately described the process of reality going from a state of unity to asymmetry and back to symmetry and unity again after dividing. And it's not just, you find this in like the Egyptian Book of the Dead and other places as well. This is not unique to Crowley at all. This is very, very ancient ideas. So interestingly, and I'm only going to go into this real quick, is that I had an experience of this during a DMT trip. So I had a DMT trip. I'm not going to go into all of it because it was very long and multiple elements. But essentially, when I did the DMT trip, I found myself at the end of space and time, the very end of space and time. All that existed was a black cube. There's something called the black cube of Saturn, but I won't get into that too much now. But keep in mind, at the time I did DMT, I knew about Gnosticism, but I wasn't deeply enmeshed into all of its interests. So for example, like I hadn't heard the story of Achamoth before. I knew basically like the One and Sophia and the Demiurge and all that. But Achamoth is kind of fringe, even in terms of Gnosticism, which is already fringe. So I didn't know about her. Anyway, so I found myself at the end of space and time. All that there was a black cube. And so what the black cube of Saturn represents is structure. That's all. The black cube of Saturn essentially represents basically like space and time. It is structure itself. With like dimensional structure. So there was the end of space and time, except the only thing left was this black cube, which was like a room. And I found myself entering into this room, and this was like everything was like the bare minimum necessary to have an experience of difference. Like it wasn't this whole universe with trees and no, it was just a black cube. And when I entered into this black cube, my body was also like the bare minimum. It was just shiny black humanoid shape. If you ever seen people who wear like those latex cat suits where even the eyes are covered and the mouth is covered and it's just like shiny blackness. It was essentially like that. So kind of like, the black cube was like the minimal bounds for having a spatial temporal existence. And then this body was like a very minimalistic terms of having a bodily experience. And within this cube, it seemed to be filled with like intricate technology, but it's so far beyond even like what we would call or think of as technology. It was just extremely advanced mechanisms. But again, it was the size of a room, and inside of the room, the light was this red color, like red light. Well, the room itself was black, but it was like illuminated by red, like red lighting. It seemed like. And then immediately from my chest, from my chest came another creature or entity that looked exactly like me, which was, again, just this black minimalist figure, and came out of me and then stood before me. And what I understood that to be, again, was the minimal necessary structure for experiencing a self and other. So you see how this kind of like the bare minimum of everything was there. There was just structure, self, and then other. And so this other, I felt was feminine, and I felt I was masculine. But this is not in terms of literal gender. It's like poles of energy. Basically, it was just my inner opposite is what this was. My inner opposite. And what had happened basically was that we had completed like all reality, and I didn't just represent myself as like me, Morgue the individual. I was everything, meaning we were everything, right? It's not like me as my particular ego, but basically like me as the universe that was completed, which would basically be you and everyone and all of us. I just had the experience. So from my vantage points, it was like but it's everyone. So we had basically all completed everything. There was no space and time, just these minimal bounds necessary. And then we were expressed in this bodily form and the opposite, minimum bounds for everything. And so what had happened was that this entity felt like my perfect lover, essentially, like a perfect match, because it was the opposite of me projected forward, the opposite of us projected forward. And what essentially I felt was that we went through the whole process of reality, like everything I just described. All the vast souls in existence, going through all of its transformations and evolutions and transcending the physical domain and connecting and forming until it all collapsed, and all that was left was this. What was this black cube and me and an opposite. And we were all reality. We were the universe. We were everything that there is. And so basically, there was basically nothing left to do. And what happened was that we decided to forget and start again. We made the decision to forget and start again, because there was literally nothing else to do. It would be hell just being one forever. So that was the decision that we made. We would forget, and so that we could have this joy of like coming back together. And when we made this, and when we made this decision, it all started happening very, very quickly, and the experience was awful. It was the most painful experience that I've ever had in terms of like emotional pain, because it felt like losing your perfect lover across all time, right? And I could feel my memories fading and forgetting, and the technology in the room became very strange and alien, and then and then everything faded, and a new reality was born. And then my experience was going through lifetime, feeling like I was looking for something. And that something was, this entity, which was me, my inner opposite, which is our inner opposite. But here's the thing that was so cool, is that she was in everything. She was the universe. She was in the rain. She was in the birds chirping. She was in every person, because she was everything. And going from lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And this was a very impactful experience for me. And it was very cool when I learned the story of Akamoth, because later it reflected my experience pretty accurately in terms of, if you think of Akamoth, Akamoth is basically the only being in existence from her perception, and she creates without a male partner. And this happens with Sophia and her partner as well. Sophia creates on her own, right? There's Sophia and her male partner, and she creates by herself. And from that, Akamoth is born. But Akamoth is really not different from Sophia. Akamoth is Sophia's shadow. So she's like the distorted part of Sophia, the part that becomes the world. And this was sort of the experience that I had, in that this entity was creating from herself, and from herself, she became literally everything. And without even knowing it, I was feeling her presence through everything. Very similar to the Gnostic story of Sophia and Achamoth, which is very cool. Like I said, I knew Sophia before, but I didn't know about Achamoth, like her tears becoming the rain and her smile becoming the sun, and her ignorance becoming matter, and her joy becoming a yearning towards the light and where she originally came from. Really beautiful, very impactful on me. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of bring that up as, not like, proof or anything, but a very interesting experience that I had that reflects not only Gnostic symbolism, but also how the structure of reality actually works in terms of going from a state of separation to unity, to separation to unity, and reflecting Crowley's quote, "I am divided for love's sake, for the chance of union." That's the creation of the world. The pain of division doesn't even matter compared to the joy of reunion, is essentially what he said. So you have this Gnostic interpretation, you have this Neogenian mathematical interpretation, you have this poetic interpretation from Aleister Crowley. I had myself a personal experience of this, and it all just fits together very nicely, both in terms of objective reality and mathematics to internal symbolism. And this has been reflected throughout time. So many people have talked about this sort of experience because it all exists within us. It's we're all going through this. It's not me, myself, it's everyone. We are all having this experience right now together because we've done this in infinite number of times before. We've done this infinitely before. And this is another iteration of that we're doing right now for the chance of having the joy of reunion. And that's why the meaning of life is to enjoy it and understand it. Because we are here to have an experience of multiplicity, experience self and other, enjoy that. But it's also to understand it. Because the more we understand ourselves and understand reality, the better experiences we can create for each other. We can create a better world. We can create more fulfilling experiences. We can create more meaning when we understand the connectivity that is underlying reality, that is us ultimately connected. All right, let's see. I went on a long rant there, but I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know that's a lot of information to take in. Like I said, if you want to know more about it, check out my books. Just don't expect it to be like Gnosticism. It's not. It's fairly heavy philosophy. But let me know, as always, too, especially in this video, if you made it to the end. I always want to know who clicks off after 10 minutes and who actually watches it to the end. So if you made it to the end, tell me in the comments, let me know, and tell me your thoughts as well. And as always, remember, this is not a channel. We are a revolution of the mind, here to make higher consciousness go viral. And now you know why. We're accomplishing everything that we've been talking about. We are that process. We are the process of reaching that higher state of consciousness, developing that new structure of the psyche so we can create a unified world where we maximize the quality of life for everyone, which should be obvious, but apparently is radical. Because humans have no concept of unity. They're so stuck in self versus other, or very underdeveloped concept of unity, a very misaligned, fractured, and distorted sense of unity. But hit like, share, subscribe. Every time you do that, it helps spread this message to more people. If you want to help out even more so I can create bigger and better videos, become a member on Patreon and YouTube, and you'll get access to members-only videos, and as well as downloads on inner transformation. It helps out the channel a lot. And remember, I am working on a new book right now. I'm in the middle of writing a book all about Gnosticism. Not only all about Gnosticism in terms of understanding the symbolism, but understanding how to apply it to your life, how to understand the Neogenian system through it, and will even contain a chapter on Gnostic rituals as well. So it's not just information, it's something that allows you to tap into lived knowledge that will transform your life. I'm really excited about it. I think you guys are going to love it. Also, if you have a Spotify account, follow me on Spotify. I'm seeing more people talk about how they found this information through my channel on Spotify. So it helps a lot. If you have a Spotify account, go follow me. It's completely free to do. Links to all those things, they are in the description of this video. Spotify, books, and memberships. Check it out. But as always, my friends, I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports. I appreciate you all. And big shout out to everyone, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, Nusalina, Eric, Tornado, Pop Out, Chris, Argraziel, Masticate, Mr. Orange, something or other, just numbers, I think, Mr. Orange, Willow the Awakened, I Am, Banshee, Lien, and is that Renee, and everyone else. Thank you very much. My name is Morgue, and I am Neogenian. Ad Astra.